Welcome back to Past, Present, and Politics. Today I'd like to start off the show with a George Orwell quote from the novel 1984. And that is, "Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past." I want you to remember this next time you wonder why so much of history is misconstrued, especially to favor those who are in charge, or those in power, I should say. And right now, there's no better example of this than the Jeffrey Epstein hoax, which is what I'm going to start off talking about today. Because over the past month, I guess it's been a little longer than a month now, the Trump administration has repeatedly denied the existence of the Jeffrey Epstein files. And this has understandably not pleased many Trump supporters, because we're not this gullible, and also because Trump ran on the idea of releasing the files. Like, he promised he was going to do this in his campaign. And now, all of a sudden, it's a hoax created by the Democrats, according to Trump. And so, to give you a quick timeline of the Trump administration's quick switch up that they had, I think it was back in February. Pam Bondi gave all of these popular influencers these binders that said Phase 1 on it. And they were all taking these photos with them. And they basically just got us all excited for the release of the Epstein files. And then that same month, Pam Bondi was interviewed, and she said that she had the Epstein names on her desk. And here's the video.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
That same month, Trump's lawyer, Alina Abba, said that they have names, specifically that they have names.
In this case, in Epstein's case, it is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
Is it going to be shocking?
I don't see how it's not shocking that there were so many individuals that were hidden and kept secret and not been held accountable. Let's talk about the reverse. I believe in accountability. So you have to now go through your process.
Anyway, so fast forward to July 7th, and the DOJ comes out and says that basically Jeffrey Epstein killed himself, and they have this video proof to prove it, and that there's no client list or incriminating client list. And this newly recovered video footage, they put in the link, or they put a link to it in the files or the statement that they released saying this. And right off the bat, people found problems with this video. There's numerous problems. One of the main ones is that there's an entire minute missing with no explanation. They had no explanation for why there's a minute missing. They just wanted us to accept the fact that there's an entire minute missing, which a lot can happen in a minute. It goes from 11 hours, 58 minutes, and 59 seconds to 12 hours. And they didn't even try to explain it. Another thing that people have noticed is that the stairs in the background aren't completely in the view of the camera. And these stairs are the stairs that lead to his cell. So there's only a very small sliver of the stairs that lead to his cell. And so it's very easy to sneak past the view of the camera and walk up and down the stairs without being seen. I don't know why they thought we would notice that occur. And the fact that we haven't seen this video until now is also suspicious. And it's also weird that they said that this was raw footage when you can clearly look back at the history of the file and see that it has been through many different editing websites. And so it angered people, including me, when during several press conferences, Trump came out and said that it's all a hoax. And so the first time he said this was, I'm trying to think, July 9th. It was July 9th during a press conference. This is what he said.
Costa, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the set?
Yeah, sure.
Could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First.
Anyways, so are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? Yes, we're talking about Jeffrey Epstein. It didn't happen that long ago. And Jeffrey Epstein was like, he trafficked children. Like, these were minors. They were sex trafficked. This is a big deal. This is something that you should care about. Obviously, people care about it. Anyways, it's ridiculous. And what didn't help was his tweets that he left. The first one was July 12th. At least the first one I noticed is when he was defending Pam Bondi, talking about how it's all a hoax, and then at the very end, he says, let's keep it that way and not waste time and energy on Jeffrey Epstein, somebody that nobody cares about. Again, the whole idea that nobody should care about it kind of feels like we're being gaslit. And then, again, on July 16th, he came out with this tweet, talking about how it's all a hoax, and he says here, talking about Democrats, also, unlike Republicans, they stick together like glue. Their new scam is what we will forever call the Jeffrey Epstein hoax, and my past supporters have bought into this bullshit hook, line, and sinker. His past supporters, like, it's so ridiculous. He's like disowning his supporters who question the Jeffrey Epstein narrative. Just a ridiculous amount of his supporters. I just can't even believe it. So, according to him, it's a hoax and a waste of his time. The most recently, he said this was in a conference. Press conference. Let's pull that up. There we go.
President, is Vice President Vance hosting a gathering this evening to talk about how to respond to the Epstein situation?
Is he working on what?
Is he hosting some kind of gathering of top advisors this evening to talk about how to respond to the Epstein situation?
I don't know. I could ask you that question. I don't know of it, but I think here's the man right here.
I saw it reported today, and it's completely fake news. We're not meeting to talk about the Epstein situation, and I think the reporter who reported it needs to get better sources.
Look, the whole thing is a hoax. It's put out by the Democrats because we've had the most successful 6 months in the history of our country, and that's just a way of trying to divert attention to something that's total bullshit. Okay? Yeah, please.
Yeah. The funny thing about that video is the guy standing behind him is actually a guy, he's a man named Howard Lutnick, which, he just so happens to be Jeffrey Epstein's former neighbor who did a property deal with him, anyways, I just thought that was interesting. But obviously people are outraged by this, as they should be, as anyone would be, because what kind of an explanation is that? It was just a hoax created by the Democrats. Like, what? This whole time, he was hyping this up, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna release the Epstein list. So obviously, and it just doesn't make any sense. Like, what is with the change in tune? And so, because this is the history segment, or it's supposed to be the past segment, and for those of you who are unfamiliar with a lot of the details surrounding Jeffrey Epstein, I'll give you a quick history of it, and we'll start from the beginning. So, Jeffrey Epstein's parents were supposedly middle-class Jewish immigrants. And he didn't grow up in Hollywood. He didn't grow up extremely wealthy. But the start in his career was extremely strange. Because despite not having any degree whatsoever, Jeffrey Epstein somehow got a job teaching physics and mathematics at a private school in New York. And this was a school that had students from extremely wealthy families. Like, these weren't just wealthy families, these were very powerful people. Like, these were the kids of very powerful people. Like, some of the most powerful people in Hollywood and in politics. But he had no degree. Like, so despite having no degree, he somehow landed this job, which is not suspicious at all. And in 1981, eventually he got fired from that school, but in 1981, Epstein started his own business, and he referred to himself as a bounty hunter because he recovered stolen money for wealthy people. And again, not just wealthy people, very, very powerful people in politics and Hollywood. And obviously, as the story goes, the police first began investigating him in 2005. And 36 young girls were identified whom Epstein had sexually assaulted. And you would think he would spend more time in prison for that, but he was only convicted of a few things, and that only put him in prison for 13 months. But he was finally arrested again in 2019 for sex trafficking. And this time it was discovered that he had hundreds, if not thousands, of victims. And now we have the flight logs, and we have this list of all these people who flew to his island. And the FBI acquired thousands of videos and files that included child abuse material. And just after a month of being in prison, he committed suicide. He committed suicide on August 10th. And it's frustrating that this is still the narrative because there's a lot of evidence that he did not commit suicide, like a lot more than people think. I mean, as I mentioned before, there's a ton of stuff wrong with the footage. We've got all these problems with the footage. But also the autopsy found that he had 2 fractures in the thyroid cartilage and 1 fracture in the hyoid bone, which might be possibly from hanging by suicide or suicide by hanging. But it's extremely unlikely, and it's more often something you would see in a homicide by strangulation. It's also extremely odd, at least to me, it's extremely odd that a New York Post photographer happened to capture a photo almost immediately after his death. Immediately upon arriving to the hospital, a New York Post photographer was just there. He just happened to be there. I don't know, I guess like maybe this photographer just happened to be hanging out at the hospital on a random night and just got a picture, just got really lucky. I don't know, but that seems unlikely to me as well. And the thing that I find the most interesting about all of this is there's a lot of people who would want Jeffrey Epstein dead. Like, realistically, there's a lot of reasons why he would not have committed suicide and somebody could have killed him, because there's a lot of people who wanted him dead. For starters, he was involved in a ton of business deals with very powerful people, and it's common for people like Epstein to use blackmail. And when I say people like Epstein, I mean people who were involved with the Mossad, or people who worked for the Mossad, or at least were involved with the Mossad. And I know that's like a conspiracy theory, but it really isn't when you start looking into Jeffrey Epstein more. Because Jeffrey Epstein's partner in crime, Ghislaine Maxwell, was first introduced to him through her father, Robert Maxwell. And what's interesting is they don't really claim that that's what happened. They claim that they met after her father died. But according to Stephen Hoffenberg, who was one of Epstein's former business partners, they had met way before that because he was working with his father, Robert Maxwell. And Robert Maxwell not only, or her father, Robert Maxwell not only worked for the Mossad, but he was pretty high up. And according to sources close to Epstein, Epstein and Robert worked together on business operations, including the Iran-Contra affair in the 80s, which was, that was an Israeli Mossad operation. And so he was getting in all of this stuff and getting in that kind of dirty work with powerful individuals while involving yourself in a blackmail ring is a recipe for disaster if you don't want to be killed. And so there's so much evidence. There's so much evidence that he did not kill himself. This is just like a scratch of the surface. And yet we're told that we're crazy and we're conspiracy theorists to think otherwise. And it's also crazy to come out and say that there is no clients list when we have all of these flight logs of powerful people visiting his island and doing business deals with him. Like, what else are they doing? He has no sort of like, his history, his background is so vague, and like how he got his power, there's no explanation for it. He just randomly got all of this money? I don't think so. And so he's got all of this going on, and we're expected to believe there's just no client list. That Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison because she trafficked children to only Jeffrey Epstein? I don't think so. So this whole thing about Trump calling it all BS, it doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't think that we should let it slide. All right, so for our current event, we've got this article from Reuters, and also there's several other articles like the New York Times that talked about this. But it says the U.S. reverses pledge to link disaster funds to Israel boycott stance. And this was like a week ago. Let's see, August 4th. And so it says, Washington, August 4th, the Trump administration on Monday reversed course on requiring U.S. cities and states to rebuke boycotts of Israeli companies in order to receive disaster funds, according to a statement, and deleted the earlier policy from its website. The Department of Homeland Security removed its statement that said states must certify they will not sever commercial relations specifically with Israeli companies to qualify for funding. The fact that this even happened in the first place is just wild to me. Like, it's insane that, like, disaster funding, like, this is our tax dollars that we're talking about. Our tax dollars weren't going to go to citizens for disasters if the state boycotted a foreign country. That should have nothing to do with this. If we boycott Israel, then we don't get disaster funds. Like, it's so obvious now. I feel like before they tried to hide it when they were doing stuff for foreign countries instead of America, which is the opposite of America first. But now they're just not hiding it at all. It's very, very obvious that it's Israel first. And it's sad because it shouldn't be that way. Like, it just should not ever be that way. It doesn't matter what country it is or how much you support them. Like, we shouldn't be Israel first. We should be America first. And so the fact that this even happened is insane. But the reason why I wanted to highlight this and that it was reversed is because it means that even though the Trump administration has been like very off tune lately, like as we've talked about the Jeffrey Epstein thing, they don't seem to care what Americans think about it. But they have to care a little bit because we are their future voters. And so when Americans get mad, eventually it's going to catch up to them. And they know that. And so because there was so much outrage over this, they had to reverse it. Or at least hide it. I don't know. But they had to reverse it because they're starting to realize that we're not falling for this anymore. Like, we do not care about, like, we do not care for the Israel first stuff anymore. We don't want to do it. We're catching on to it. And it's getting very old. And it's very promising to me because it means that Americans are finally waking up. And I think at first it started with Gen Z, I think mostly. We started to wake up and we started to be like, hey, we should be America first. We shouldn't be supporting all of these foreign countries before our own country. Or even at all, in most cases. And so Gen Z started to wake up, but I think even now, like, average Americans are waking up. Like, even older Americans are waking up. And so I think when the people who watch Fox News and who are watching all of this propaganda about how we should support all of these foreign wars, we should give money to Israel because they're our number one ally. I think even those people are starting to catch on. Even the people who watch Fox News, like, that's how bad it's getting. And so I think mostly this is a good sign. I'm trying to be hopeful. It's at least a step in the right direction because it means that they actually need to start caring what Americans think. Because I think we're getting sick of this crap. And obviously there's still some people who are like, oh, we need to give money to Israel and we need to punish those who don't. Which this isn't even like boycotting of Israeli companies. Like, we should be allowed to boycott Israeli companies if we want to. Like, should be a free country. We should be allowed to not send our money to Israeli companies. Like, why is that? I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense to me. Because this is a free country. We should be able to spend our money how we want. So it makes me very, very happy that it seems like they're listening, even if only a little bit. But it says Reuters reported on Monday that the language applied to at least $1.9 billion that states rely on to cover search and rescue equipment, emergency manager salaries, and backup power systems, among other expenses, according to 11 agency grant notices reviewed by Reuters. So, yes. And then it says, this is a shift for the administration of President Donald Trump, which has previously tried to penalize institutions that don't align with its views on Israel or anti-Semitism. Which, again, it's ridiculous. Anti-Semitism? Like, what? We don't want to give money to a country that's bombing children? I don't think that's anti-Semitic. And also, we live in a free country. Even if they were right about this, and Israel is our number one ally, we should have the right to give our money to who we want. And so I'm hoping that this will continue and Americans will continue to wake up. Because I think that this administration kind of is throwing us a dog bone right now. I don't think they actually are going to do much about it. But the fact that Americans are waking up means that eventually we're just not going to let it slide anymore. And that is very encouraging to me.